Hey everybody. For this video, I want to talk about the sample argument essay that I gave you. Now, I believe I gave you an assignment about this as well that's due Friday the 17th. So, maybe read the essay. Definitely read the essay. Maybe also do that assignment before watching this video. It's an easy assignment, just asking for something you liked about it, something that could have been better. Um, but I just thought I would give you my thoughts on this essay and, try to explain why I gave this as a sample. So I'll say, first of all, I think this is a decent essay. I think it does a lot of things well. I think there's one major thing that was a problem for me. I think I ended up giving this essay probably some sort of B. I think something in the B range. So I just want to go through and tell you some of the things that I think that was good about it, and some of the things that are reasons I took points off. So first of all, the topic here, it's about textbooks being too expensive and how to make textbooks more affordable. I think it's a good topic. It's definitely not like it's not a topic that I specifically suggested. Like I gave this class the same assignment that I'm giving you guys. Just have a problem with college, argue for a solution. So a lot of you guys went with the student debt thing, and that's fine. But this was another option. Um, so their thesis, I think we see here towards the end of the first paragraph. They say paying for textbooks can be stressful and there has to be a better way to afford them. So I like here that they let us know that their argument is going to be that there's a better way to afford them. Maybe they could have been a little more specific. Like I think they will get there, but I think they eventually end up arguing for having some kind of online textbook like subscription kind of service where you pay like one price to have all your textbooks on a website or something like that. But they probably could have at least mentioned that here, that was going to be the solution, right? They could have said, paying for textbooks can be stressful, and a better way to afford them would be to make it available online for one price. And then I think that would have been maybe a more specific thesis. But again, they do let us know like what their topic is and kind of what they're going to be arguing. So I think it's a good thesis. Could be better if it was more specific. I find myself all the time replying, when I'm making comments on students' essays, which check out the comments on the rough draft of your argument essay if you haven't. But when I'm making comments, I always end up saying like, can you be more specific, or can you explain this more specifically? And it's things like that, like just saying there should be a better way to afford textbooks versus saying there should be like a website that you pay one flat rate for that has all your textbooks on it. Like that would be specific for the thesis, right? Um, so they go through here their first couple paragraphs. They just give some information on like how expensive college is, which is good research to have, right? And also like some of the problems, like a lot of things you guys mentioned about, don't we want people to go to college? We need to give people skills to do stuff and everything. They also give, something that to me makes sense. They talk about, they give the quote, there's 1.48 trillion in total U.S. debt. That number seems a little outdated now. I feel like I've seen some higher numbers in what you guys are writing, but I guess that makes sense. And yeah, this essay was from 2018. So yeah, we're just keep pushing that number up, I guess. Okay, so one thing here, which is I'm looking at, what is it, their third paragraph on the top of the second page. They say the amount of student debt is ridiculous. So this whole paragraph is about how much student debt there is, right? So they ended by saying the amount of student debt is ridiculous, and students who make the effort to attend college should at least have a better way to not have another big expense of textbooks. So I thought this was good that they circled back to textbooks, right? Something I find myself telling students all the time and repeating it over and over again, I try to anyway, is that you've got to have your paragraphs connect back to your thesis. It's got to be clear, right? I'm sure your paragraphs do connect to your thesis. Like that seems obvious as I'm saying it, but you just want to make sure it's clear for the reader, right? Because sometimes the connection is in your head and you know what the connection is. And if I asked you, you could probably explain it to me, but you've got to make sure that it actually shows up in the words, right? So the fact to me that they said, okay, I've been talking about student debt this whole time. What does student debt have to do with making textbooks more expensive? Like the debt isn't from textbooks, like directly. It's mostly from tuition. But they end up saying, this amount of debt is so much that we should at least have a way to not have another big expense of textbooks. So what they're doing there is connecting the end of their paragraph back to their thesis, right? Which is something that I really want to see from everybody, is showing us very clearly how each paragraph is like a building block in the argument that you're making, which goes back to the main argument, which is your thesis that you're going to have in your first paragraph, right? They also had some good research here, which, again, for you guys, I'm not too worried about the research here. Don't panic about the research. If you can't find the research, whatever, we'll get over it. I'm not emphasizing the research with you guys. It's not going to affect your grade very much, is what I'm trying to say, the research. But they have some good research here, which I think just helps. I think it honestly makes it easier to expand on your argument. Like if your essay is not long enough, you need to figure out how to make it longer. Doing research might seem like it sucks or like it's annoying. We don't want to do it. But if you do get some research, it does make it easier to make your essay longer because then you can say things like this, where in on the second page they say the average cost of a textbook can be up to $300, and they have it from a source. So that's the kind of thing, where we want to get specific with this stuff. They're talking about how expensive textbooks are. So it makes sense to me that they would go, oh, here's how expensive they are, $300. That's an average price. So I thought that was some good research that they have. And then they say, so, what if you're a full-time student, you're taking 5 classes, now it's $1,500 on textbooks. How does this amount of money on textbooks make sense to afford? So I think that really makes their argument stronger, the fact that they found the specific number, and we're like, look how much this is. Nobody could pay this, and of course they're right. One reason that I don't require my students to buy textbooks, I'm trying. I also agree with this being a problem. So yeah, I thought they had some good research there. For their next paragraph, again, still on the second page, the last paragraph, they start the paragraph off with just "it is said," and then they go into a quote: "College textbook prices have increased faster than tuition." So I don't love like starting a paragraph with "it is said" and then the quote. Maybe have another couple of sentences kind of leading up to that. Like, yeah, everyone's focused on tuition. Everyone has all these plans for tuition, but what about the books? No one's talking about this. Maybe something like that, and then they could get into their quote about how it's rising faster than tuition and all these other prices, right? Um, so they have good research. I think they could have done more to introduce the quote there, which is something we've talked about, right? Introducing it by saying, oh, well, this author said, or somebody wrote, or it says in this article, and then giving us the quote, and then after the quote, explaining how that quote helps to prove the argument that we're making, right? So again, they have some more good statistics, very good, everything like that. Another point I thought that I liked that they made here, a couple more actually, that I thought were just good points that are convincing and shows how like you want to again critically consider this kind of stuff and really try to think of it from like real life angles. You can't view this as like, okay, let me just come up with 3 reasons. You've got to really think about it from the point of view of people going to college and stuff, which I think you can do, right? I think you can empathize with it. So they say here, it doesn't make sense as to how public schools, which I have attended, I've never had to pay for a textbook. This is the 4th page, I think. The public school system makes it possible to give students free education, supply them with textbooks. And on the other hand, students attending college or university pay for the education and can't even get supplied with a textbook. So this made sense to me just as, we don't want to get too stuck in the bubble of, of the American college system. We do want to kind of move outside of that. It can be easy to just think of like within our own system that we already have. But I think that's kind of accepting the world how it is rather than thinking about ways it could be better. So I like that they compare the college system to being like, oh look, we already do this in high school for literally like everybody in the country. You have to go to elementary school and you just get a book and then you give it back and that's it. So why can't we do that with college? So I would encourage you guys to compare college to K through 12. Compare college in America to college in other countries, most of which it's either free or significantly cheaper than it is here. Another good point they made, again, just all this stuff makes the essay convincing to kind of go this extra level to kind of really, really think about the reasons for this. So in the next paragraph on the 4th page, they say the bookstores at colleges have this trick of forcing students to have to buy a new expensive book because their professors require them to have an access code, and this access code is good for one use only. And they say the system is corrupt. So I think that I've heard a lot of students like really agree with this point about access codes, which I guess I missed as a student. It must have been, just after I was out of college, they started doing that all the time. I also didn't take like a lot of math or science classes, so maybe it's that. But yeah, I just thought that was like again a really convincing point. Something that helps to convince the readers is to think of these like not the most obvious points, really kind of thinking it through and thinking, okay, what are all the issues with the problem here? So the problem, my mostly I've been telling you things I think that are good about this essay so far, good points that they've made, the way they've organized their paragraphs, the quotes, the research, all that. Something that I don't think is good here is that they haven't gotten to their solution. You guys have noticed that, right? We've only been talking so far about all the problem, about why it's so bad, all the consequences, why it needs a solution, which is good. We want to have that. We don't want to have 4 pages of that, right? Like I said, keep that to maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs. And I think they could have done that. Maybe they couldn't have, they had a lot of good information and everything. But I want the focus to be on the solution. I really do. I think that's the important thing here. The important thing is the solution, how to fix the problem. And in this, paragraph at the bottom of the 4th page, top of the 5th page, they get into it. They say, my idea is that colleges should have a software or a website where students have the option to pay for the textbooks for one price, maybe for $115. This would be the price you'd pay. You'd have access to all your textbook for all your classes, and you're paying for the software. You wouldn't have to pay for it every semester, one-time payment. So there you go. There's kind of rapid fire giving the details to the plan now. I think I would have liked them to take 3 or 4 paragraphs to explain this plan, explain to me why it's better to have it on a website than to have a book. Explain to, or why it's not that big of a deal anyway. Maybe it's not better, but maybe it's worth it if the price is like a big difference. Explain to me, why do this instead of just lending the books out the way that elementary schools do. Stuff like that, and $115. Well, why is that the price? If college is already way too expensive, why are we charging for it at all? You'd want to think of all these things and really kind of lay this plan out, expand on each part of it, and give it a few of its own paragraphs to kind of breathe. They sort of just jam the entire solution into one paragraph. And I think the solution makes sense, and I'm good with it. At the end of it, they say we have the chance to preserve trees, so maybe that's a reason to do it online or whatever. And I think what they're saying makes sense to make it cheaper, just have one price instead of paying, all these different prices. And colleges do this. In fact, one of their colleges that I work at, a community college in New Jersey, does in fact do this, where they just have everything online. I think it's more expensive than they say in this essay, but it probably is cheaper than regular textbooks, I guess. So anyway, the problem here, you've got to spend most of your essay on the solution. The solution is your thesis. The solution is your argument. Explaining the problem strengthens your argument because it shows us why we need the solution. But that, like for the example here, that textbooks are too expensive, that's not the thesis. That's not the main argument here. The main argument is to make college textbooks cheaper, we should put it online and have one price for a website, right? That is the main argument here, and they only had one paragraph on it. So that's honestly basically only for that reason. Like there were some other issues, but mostly for that reason, it makes me move this essay from like an A to a B, just because I think the thesis was not in the right place. Like the focus was not on the main argument, which should be, again, the solution. The solution is the main thing here. So if they had, if the entire 4th page had been about the solution, maybe if the 3rd, 4th, and 5th page had all been about the solution, I think this essay has a chance to get an A- or an A. But since they didn't give me enough about the solution, I had to knock some points off. So yeah, things we want to avoid in our essay. We want to make sure we talk about the solution the most. So there you go. That's what I was thinking with that sample essay. Just some more advice on your argument essay, and I'll talk to you again soon.